WNST. It's always a busy week at Cole Roofing. Bill Cole is my friend and partner, of course, sponsoring all the things we do here on Thursday in our community and charity series. You want to be a part of that, you can throw me an email, nasty@WNST.net. I'm drinking my Royal Farms. I gave Bill Cole an extra 30 minutes today to sort of, I want to talk about the Ravens with you, but we haven't talked Orioles in 2 months, right? And has the Braille lettering thing come to you, or how empty the ballpark is? Or, when's the last time you watched an inning of Oriole baseball, Billy?
Oh, it has been probably longer than since we've talked about them. So,
are they coming to you in any way? You
No.
have guys, you have hundreds of employees that get on roofs that are Baltimore people, and you're on the roofs of Baltimore people, and you get around, and I see your cocktail events, and we do things, and I was at Michael's Cafe the other night with Alex. No one. The Orioles games are on, like, in the bars. You know what I mean? Like, when you go in, and it's up there, and the Braille thing is there, and it's on my Twitter. And, dude, I don't even know what to say anymore. I reread my letter to John and Lou Angelos from, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago. Whatever they're doing, dude, they don't know what they're doing. I don't know what to say. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a point where I see any point of light to say. And I don't just mean the losing on the field or the Braille thing or whatever promotion they want to throw, where they're doing Loyola hats one night and UMBC hats. And I'll hear all of that. But there's no public message about how this is going to be better in April than it is right now, right?
yeah, the last two interactions about the Orioles that came across my consciousness is a friend was having a birthday party and had always wanted to rent one of the hotel rooms that look out.
Okay.
So
Watch
they-
the game, have a sweet party, okay.
Right, so they decided to do that, even though they thought, that they'd be looking at an empty ballpark, and
they
they
weren't.
all kind of had a chuckle, haha. And then,
But it's not funny. We all have a chuckle right now, but that's where Free the Birds was 12 years ago. I was afraid of this, man. This isn't good for anybody.
Yeah, and then to reinforce the concept, the other conversation is, setting the record for losses. So,
right. I didn't even bring that up. Luke and I were going to do an Orioles segment on Sunday. He's like, just wait till they break the record, and then we'll talk about that. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about 1988. I don't want to talk about how bad the team is and how bad the team is and how awful the team is and how legendary and they've set records and Caleb Joseph says everyone should be accountable and Chris Davis is hiding. That's not what I want to hear. I want to hear from the owners. I don't want to hear from the disposable players about why they stink. They stink because the owner stinks, and the franchise stinks, and the way it's run stinks, and the way they treat the business community stinks. And the Braille lettering thing, dude, I first off, and I want to tell you this because I haven't had any Melfi time. By the way, Bill Cole's here, Cole Roofing. Tell me what you do before I go Melfi on the Braille lettering thing, because it opened itself up to all sorts of macabre comedy on Tuesday night, and I didn't participate. So I want to set the record straight before I make any attempt at humor. But I want to give you a chance to promote what you do, because people come up to me all the time, and they're like, I see the Cole Roofing mug.
So we're an almost 100-year-old commercial roofing company.
99 and a half.
Right, taking care of anything commercial roofing related, everything from a small leak with all the rain that we've had. We've done a fair amount of that, and up to new buildings and new roofs and replacement roofs on shopping centers or schools and everything in between. So,
and James Bond Solar, don't forget that part.
Right. Well, we do like to build small power plants on top of rooftops and allow people to not have to pay BG anymore.
Can I make more money on that than I can on Masson?
That is possible.
Just an idea. All right, so I want to talk about the Braille thing. Did you see the Braille lettering thing?
I did. Yep, I did.
It sounds funny to say, did you see the Braille thing, right? So
every comment about it is funny.
Well, it is, right? And Stevie Wonder has a good time with himself, so I'm going to try to at least take that take on it. But I started to think about this, and my wife was driving me out to Michael's, and I started 3 different tweets in an attempt to be funny, where there's nothing. I tell you what, man, when I see blind people walking through the streets of Baltimore with the feeler out in front of them and red lights, and I feel the Braille on my fingers when I cross red lights here, I think back to when I began radio. And Bill, I began in December 1991 with Kenny Albert at WITH. And the first thing I could tell you is my first listeners, the first people who ever listened to me as a group were blind. Because blind people, that's all they had in 1992 was the radio, right? The radio, a record player. There were no, CDs were just coming at that point, and music, I guess. But talk conversation and radio is the only television blind people had. So I found it fascinating when I was at the old WITH, which maybe you're doing the roof on the building where the at Light and Baltimore, where the McDonald's has been across from the, you know where I am, right?
Yeah, that's not us. Yep.
But either way,
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
That was my first building, and the first listeners who ever came down to meet Nasty Nestor when I was 23 years old were blind. Maurice was one of my great listeners, African-American, one of the greatest baseball fans that I've ever spoken to, and he was a listener the first 10 years of my career. He may still be out there. Maurice, if you're out there, I hope to find you. I love you. But I haven't heard from Maurice probably since the turn of the century. But I had pictures with a listener named Eddie from Roland Park who was blind, who called every day. So when I hear about blind and braille and baseball, Bill, the Orioles had to fend off jokes on Tuesday night because this is where we are in the world of America, is people making fun of blind people and the jerseys. And I thought, you know what, I don't want to participate in that. But my joke, you want to hear my joke? Because I wrote it 3 times and I didn't use it. My joke was, the Orioles do know that the blind people can read the standings, right? That's not a bad one, right? I mean, that was part. But blind people love baseball. They love sports. And I think this is a wonderful thing. I think it sucks that they did it on a night when 1,800 people showed up. I think it sucks that they did it on a night where some in their fan base were having more fun with the blind joke. And like you said, you chuckle because it's sort of built in. And the National Federation for the Blind has been down at the foot of 95, where you've been laying roofs on buildings for 99 years. I've passed it a million times. I see the billboards. I've seen the commercials. I've participated in events over my 27 years. So I think it's just a shame, dude. The whole thing's a shame, and I guess I'll begin with that if I'm going to lay on the couch of Dr. Melfi, also known as Bill Cole, to just say this is a tragedy, dude. This is a tragedy.
Yeah, look, I think there's probably something really good to the Braille.
Of course.
When it's delivered incoherently without any sort of momentum because no one's paying any attention, that it loses its benefit.
Benefit is not maximized, right? We all want to maximize our efforts. If you want to do that, do it on a night when people are at the ballpark. I don't know what else to say. It's sad. It's sad that that they're trying hard, I guess, and it's just the tree falling in the woods, to quote Phil Wood.
I think a bunch of us, you just gave us a bunch of your stories about how you've interacted with the blind in the past and things that you've learned and acknowledged, and the Maryland School for the Blind up on Taylor Avenue.
My God.
Right.
How do you drive through there and not be inspired? I mean, I go that way sometimes just to be inspired, literally, because there's very few things that I see on a daily basis that inspire me more than blind people making their way through this world. Literally.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that, especially in this late time in the season, if you do that promotion somewhere in April, May, I think it gets more goodwill and less jokes, right? So, and the jokes are, I would assume for the most part good-natured and everybody gets it, and it's more about, diminishing the team than anything. But I don't know what the follow-up story is. Like, the shirt's cool, but, what are you doing with the shirts after the game? Or what did you do to promote it? I mean, I saw a little bit before the game. They had announced that these were coming, so they did a little bit of that. But again, no one's listening. So
well, why not sell a shirt that night for $15 and give the money? Or I don't know. Nobody was going no matter what. I guess that's my point, right? Like, I saw the other night that they were doing, like, Loyola hats, and they're doing UMB. They're bastardizing their hat in any shade of, do a Kelly Green and Gold Dundalk night, right? If I could sell 150 hats for them, they'd make me an Oriole hat in Kelly Green and Gold, and Old Owls would give a hoot, and I'd bring the Alumni Association, and me and Todd Crandall would run down there, and I don't know what to say, man. Like, it's
every day
they shouldn't give up, but there should be something better than this. This is disgraceful.
Every day I drive down 95, and there's a billboard promoting the fact that you can bring your kids for free. And so now we're at this point where being free is not good enough. We're actually spending money to promote the fact that we're giving stuff away for free.
Right.
So, I mean, we've questioned that and talked about that months ago, that when you give things away for free, inherently, whether it's subconscious or not, we're diminishing the value of what you're providing. Like, if you're willing to give it to me for free, it must not be that great. So it's been one comedical error after another, it seems like. And I would say from a fan's perspective, an interested fan.
We're both interested. That's the point. Me, you. I have Dennis Colazzo. So, I mean, all of my sponsors don't go to the games. We all sit here and say, when is this going to change? And I don't mean the losing. I mean, that's not my issue. My issue isn't that they suck on the field. My issue is that they suck off the field, which leads to them sucking on the field, which leads to them sucking everywhere. And I'm wondering when they're going to decide that they don't want to suck anymore. You know, like when they want to decide that they want to be proud of the brand and want to make people like you and me, good people, hardworking people, business owners in the community, when they can't recruit us, they're lost. I mean, they're absolutely lost. And I don't know when. I always wonder, like, when Peter's not there. All right, so Peter's not there anymore. I mean, how about Rosenthal last week writing that Major League Baseball doesn't know who's running the team? That there's no appointed representative running the team. And then on top of that, they're pissing with Adam Jones, right? It's just, there's nothing to say that puts it in a positive light other than when will it change? When are you going to have that press conference? When are you going to have that moment, that you're going to stop being addicted to doing it this way?
I think it's good for us to confirm, and it helps us cement reality that if you have a lack of leadership, no plan, and general neglect, that your product is going to be record-settingly bad. So at least our takeaway is the world is not upside down. North is not south, and south is not north. If you do these things, your product will suffer. Your customers will go away. Like it's kind of a silly takeaway, but the takeaway is, hey, at least they're not like in the playoff hunt despite the neglect, because we've been through that before too. So all that does is kick the can farther down the road and see, we don't really need to treat anybody good.
Oh, I say it deodorized it. I mean, when they won, it deodorized Mike Flanagan killing himself, right? It deodorized McPhail running out the side door. It just deodorized everything because Delman Young hit a double. Yeah, literally. I mean, and it didn't deodorize it for me. I mean, I saw it for what it was. We all run back but not really run back, and and the season tickets and losing the All-Star game, all the things that have happened here in recent memory, not stuff Davey Johnson. I mean, let's start with that and Albert Bell and all of that, but just the fact that Cal Ripken's in his 60s and isn't involved, and now they're bringing Brooks Robinson and Eddie Murray back, and it's almost pathetic, dude. It's kind of like when the WWE rolls out Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan again, right? It's really like, come on, man, really?
There is very little opportunity to transfer that appreciation and love for Brooks to the young kids. Like I got a friend, the same guy who was talking about going to the game and the suite and watching. He's got a 8-year-old boy, and when his dad starts ringing off numbers of players, Eddie Murray, Brooks Robinson, you know the numbers of those guys, that history, that tradition, there's no way to transfer that because Orioles, it doesn't even resonate.
Yeah, I'm wondering what to do with all my random Oriole knowledge and how I turn 50 next month. It's not going to benefit me the rest of my life. I'm not going to be able to sit here on the radio and talk about the Baltimore Orioles and have enough people care to have sponsors like Cole Roofing. So I'll break on that. Billy Cole is here from Cole Roofing. They've been doing it for 99 years. You can go out to ColeRoofing.com and find him. We got a football game. I haven't talked about the Orioles in a month, like literally. So thank you. I use you as therapy. I really do. And I'll talk to Luke about this, although he doesn't therapy me. He kicks me down the curb a little longer, believing that like at some point they'll do something like that. There's going to be some Buck Showalter news. That there's going to be that all of that's happening. Adam Jones, that's all going to happen. But for now, it's sad, and I'll leave it at that. Football. Where are you on the Ravens, man? We haven't talked in a week. They lose one on the road. I love that they battled back. I don't think they're a bad team. I don't think they're a 21-0 behind team. I don't think Flacco's shot. He did not play well in Cincinnati. He does not play well in Cincinnati. But I think they're a good team, too. So I'm willing to march on. That being said, call me at 4 o'clock on Sunday, right? Like, they've got to beat the Denver Broncos here. They're playing 4 out of 5 on the road after this.
Yeah, I think we'll beat Cincinnati the next time we play them. I wasn't overly scared of it. I mean, we don't have an answer for A.J. Green, but Jimmy Smith will be back by then, so hopefully that'll help. I think I'd rather Joe do that in the second game than in the 7th game. So you go out first game and you're like, oh, Joe's finally arrived. There he is, Super Bowl MVP guy. Like, here we go. This is going to be a great season. And then the next week you get brought back to earth, and it's like, yeah, he does tend to do that sometimes, and
that's the league. Tom Brady lost last week, too. Roethlisberger's 0-1-1, so that's the league. It is.
Sure. Just don't make me believe 7 games in that, you're the greatest ever and we're 7-0, and then all of a sudden, the other guy shows up and we limp to the finish line.
Well, I know today's the day you want to trade him for Ryan Fitzpatrick, though, right?
No, but I do find that whole story amusing as well.
I guess my point is it's small sample size.
Right. No. Buffalo couldn't use him anymore.
Not at all. No. Or the Jets, by the way, yeah.
I don't know if we know because we're not, in the meeting rooms and at the facility, but like Mosley going out, I think that maybe we're still early enough where we're trying to put all the pieces together and everybody's trying to figure out how to play, and they're kind of like Buffalo was so bad we could just athleticism them, and just run around. So I think we suffered when Mosley went out a little bit. So I'm curious to see because I don't know if I guess he's going to play this week. I don't know if he's going to play this week. I haven't heard that, but.
Yeah,
I think that hurts. I think he's more important than maybe we realize because he's not as flashy as maybe some of the guys in the past have been.
Right, sure. Well, I'll say, and I don't, I think it's bad. I think it'll be a couple of weeks for me if he plays this week. I'll be, I don't want to say shocked, but whatever's next to shock. Very, very surprised. How about that? If he's playing this week, based on the injury and based on. Just, the way it feels and the way it smells to me. And I thought Harbaugh's comment about no one's a good team, I thought that was a pretty poignant week 2 thing to say for an NFL coach that there are no good teams yet. And, and Alex Lewis was out with us at Michael's Cafe on Tuesday night as well and sort of, echoed that we're all trying to find ourselves. And I said to him, none of these units, 11 players, and it's not 11 anymore. Let's be honest. It's 13, 14, 15 when you have sub-packages and 2 tight end sets, 2 running backs, 4 wide receivers, multiple nickel-dime packages, rush edges, all that stuff, different fronts in your front 7. So there's 16 guys that are playing on both sides of the ball regularly in various packages. And out of those guys, there's not a team in preseason, whether you played 4 games or 5 games or all these practices that they get together and do now, where all of the working parts were working at any point. during August, right? So they're all feeling, for the Ravens, it's Yanda. Then you get Mosley in there, then he's not in there. You practice with Jimmy Smith, then you go play without Jimmy Smith. But everybody's dealing with that right now. And it's maybe it's LaShawn McCoy if you're in Buffalo and he goes down and you're like, no matter whom it is, every team has had one of those moments. You just got to hope it's not C.J. Mosley for 15 games, that it's C.J. Mosley for 2 weeks. Remember last year without Brandon Williams? I mean, these guys that make $12 million a year, whomever they are, whether it's Wagner or Semele and Jensen being gone and the offensive line having to figure it out, whether it's trying to run the ball last year without Marshall Yanda, whether it's trying to stop Antonio Brown or Odell Beckham Jr. when you don't have Jimmy Smith on the field. I'm giving all these instances where the Ravens have lost football games because their best players haven't been on the field. And you can talk about Flacco in 15 and pretty much 16 too when you have a $26 million player that isn't playing like that for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you can read at this point is there are units inside that group that have shown to be strong or weak. And I guess one of my concerns is I still don't feel like we've got the running game going. And we know, or we believe in this town, that, if you don't have a strong running game, I don't know how far you're going to go. Because at some point, the passing game lets you down, and you can play really good defense, but if you can't hold the ball and run some clock late in the game, I think that spells trouble.
What I think about with that is the 2006 season where I was blubbering out on my couch after we lost to Peyton Manning. Dude, if they could have run the ball that night, right? Literally, if they could have run the ball that night, they win the game, right? And with the kicker we have, if we can run the ball a little bit, we can shorten the game, win the game against more high-powered offenses. Our defense is decent. So running the ball is everything, and in week one, they didn't try to. 30 passes, they're up 40-0, fine. Last week, they're losing 21-0, don't run the ball. There's only so many of these opportunities, and I always bring up that crazy Jacksonville game, right, where Ray Rice touched the ball 4 times or whatever in the Cam Cameron offense. We're not drifting that way, but all we heard about in the offseason was Roman and the running game, and we talked to Alex about that on Tuesday night. I mean, that's got to be a part of this thing on Sunday, Bill.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of psychological stuff to the running game, too. This is a battle of players and strength and physicality, and I think nothing gives your team confidence more than lining up and being able to, dominate the guy across from you to get 3 yards when you need it. And I think that just gives, spirit to the whole team, and then I think things just start to snowball and go downhill from there. So I don't know. I think it's important. I think they need to try and make a more concerted effort to get it going and get it established, and that'll make it easier on Joe. And I think with the weapons, Joe seems to be having a pretty easy go finding guys that can get separation, which feels different than in years past. So if you can run the ball a little bit, I think things will really open up.
Well, especially when Hayden Hurst comes back, right? I mean,
sure.
when you get a full complement on your team and when there's more comfort with the wide receivers. But, I just need Joe to get better looks and not throw passes the way he did in the first quarter on Thursday night. I mean, that and he's thrown that pass his whole career, and we've all scratched our head. And then he's back shoulder, to Anquan Bolden, and we're winning Super Bowls too. And look, yeah. Eli Manning struggling. I mean, there's guys all over the league with, far more credentials than Joe struggling right now. And I'm not concerned the way I was last year where he looked gimpy, limp. The offensive line wasn't there. We knew there was no running game at various points with Marshall Yanda not being there. I do feel it's different, and I'm still keeping January open, Bill. I am.
Yeah, I don't want to make an excuse for Joe, but I am curious how many times he threw the ball between the end of the Buffalo game and Thursday, because I guarantee his arm was sore as heck after that game. Throwing that waterlogged ball in the torrential downpour as many times as he did, that he probably had to ice a lot the next day. So I'm curious, maybe, I don't know how many passes he threw between Sunday and Thursday, and going from a heavy ball to the way he threw the ball in the Buffalo game, being in the rain like that, I was blown away at how effective he was. I mean, you could see it on the other side.
And Cincinnati was a beautiful night, dude. It was 78. It was perfect. And I'm with you. it was out of character for Joe, I thought, on Thursday night. I thought that was one of the really bad games he's played when he's been healthy, especially at this point in his career where he sees things better, or he should be at least.
He will make bad decisions and get interceptions, but he doesn't typically throw a bad ball. Like, he doesn't throw it into the ground. He doesn't throw it over their heads. I mean, not to say that he never does it, but not as much as he was doing it in Cincinnati. And to me, that just seemed like, I wonder how many passes he threw in between. So
I'll ask him.
Yeah.
Bill Cole's here. Is Cole Roofing and, of course, Fister Energy, one of our great sponsors of our community and charity series on Thursday. We're lining them up. Just as a reminder, this week, a Flip Flop Festivus coming up on Friday. I'm going to do a little community effort here as well. We've also got the Safe Minds project coming on with autism, and they're rocking it out with AC/DC next week. We're going to talk to Lisa Wiederlight about that a little later on in the week. You can find all that up in the buyatoyota.com audio vault, as well as on our Twitter and our Facebook. Any predictions you want to make, Bill, or you just want to get out the door here and just say, let's get this one over with and get on the road to Pittsburgh? And it'll be fun on Monday night watching Pittsburgh play Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm looking forward to that.
I think we hold serve at home like we always do, but I got one other sidebar related thing that is interesting.
Sure.
Do you see the stuff about the Hall of Famers wanting health insurance?
I did, and it's not lost on me when I go to the Super Bowl every year and see these guys around that amongst the older players there's some consternation. Eric Dickerson, is a poop stirrer. He was for the Rams out in L.A. a couple years ago, and Jeff Fisher, and I think this is an issue that they want to shed some light on, and obviously that happened earlier in the week. I know a couple of players, Jerry Rice and Kurt Warner, ran away from it. Their names were on it. It'll be interesting to see how it's perceived by the league. And I don't think this was a shock. I don't think David Baker or Goodell were blindsided by this, that the players are not compensated. And I know a lot of players have kind of quietly said, I'm only going to go when I feel like it, or when somebody's paying me to be there.
Yeah, I think the missed opportunity by the Hall of Famers is no one in the public gets really emotional about the billions of dollars that football's making and them not taking care of the old players. I mean, you kind of care and you're disappointed and hey,
But it's not keeping you from the game Sunday, right? It's not. Right. It's not turning you away from the brand. It's just a little downer that you get over at 1:00 on Sunday.
Well,
I agree with that.
It's like an inside your family fight. You don't have to air your laundry everywhere. You guys got your own internal problems. Hey, you should probably be taking care of these old guys, and you're not, and that's stupid, and whatever.
Well, then you gaslight it, right? Then you just put it, you open up, that's, I guess, what it was, right?
Yeah, here's my thing. The Hall of Famers have the opportunity to make that health insurance discussion about the country, not just about football players. And they can encourage the football, the NFL, to have that dialogue. They all want to be involved, right? They all want to make these political statements. They all want to get involved. Everybody wants to do
Everyone wants significance. It's part of the human condition, right? Literally, right?
I think, the costs associated to healthcare and the challenges that we have facing, our elderly, and that growing demographic of our population.
As I'm very aware of, having buried a 98-year-old mother last year, I've lived all of my adulthood with an elderly mother, literally, right? I mean, I'm 50 years old. The last 25 years of my life, my mother was 73 when I was 23, right? So, I mean, I sign me up. I got my pen out. Where can I sign up for that decree there, Bill?
Well, I'm just saying, turn the conversation, instead of saying, hey, you should pay for this for me because this really sucks. Why don't you say, hey, this really sucks. What can we do together to, it'd be nice if you paid for it too, but while we're at it, why don't we figure out a way to get the costs under control? And I just think then you're this powerful group of Hall of Famers that everybody loves, and, everybody will stop and listen to you. It might not mean you have a good idea, but you might spur more conversation, and you might put more pressure on Congress and people to actually deal with it and not just, make it a political pawn thing.
And I also think that when these guys are gray and broken down and 65 years old, and you see Earl Campbell, who can't walk, who was my hero as a kid in Love You Blue and all that, when you're around it and a little bit, I think that there's some wisdom that comes with those older guys that you're just not getting when I'm sitting with a 22-year-old football player on a Tuesday night. It's a different way of looking at it that I think would be heard more than Colin Kaepernick is heard, right? Because the perception of age difference, I think, in that part of the world anyway.
And they need to get ahead of the whole concept of how dangerous and physically abusive the sport is. Like, that concept's not going away. And I spend my weekends on the soccer field with my kids, and I talk to other dads and who have sons and,
who are playing soccer, not football.
Right. There's no one playing football right now because they're all scared because they're not getting any of the messages, right? And the only images you do hear and the only movies they do make. So I think they're missing the boat. I think they're missing a chance to actually have some healthy dialogue to talk about these things and figure out, good ways to attack societal problems, country problems, like some of the medical stuff that, they need to put their voices behind certain things just to encourage dialogue. They don't have to dictate decisions. They just have to encourage dialogue.
Love it. Bill Cole from Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy. You can find him out on the web, out on LinkedIn, and wherever there is a roof, he'll be there to help out. Hey, man, great to have you on. Thanks for melting me up on the Orioles in the beginning. You leave me with a nice little feel-good, right? Like, the Ravens are going to win. We're going to save the country. We're going to get health care. We're going to make nice with Hall of Famers.
It's just another conversation with Nestor.
See you next week. It'll be Pittsburgh week. I'll be all pissed off, especially if we don't win.
I appreciate you, man.
And we're one day closer to the Orioles, 118, 128. I don't know how many. They can't lose 128 at this point. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We got a football game with the Broncos this week. Always appreciative of all of our sponsors out there, including our friends at the Modell Lyric. John Mayer's playing the night I'm in Cleveland to benefit the place where my wife had her life saved over at the Kimmel Cancer Center over at Hopkins. So I will not be at John Mayer, but John Mayer's going to be at the Modell Lyric, and I think that's cool. John Mellencamp will be there in February, too. Tickets on sale. Steely Dan, Kansas. All the cool people are playing Modell Lyric. I'm so happy that they're a partner. There is magic at the Modell Lyric. Sporticulture is our partner. I have purple pansies here. I've said all along the court, I hope he's a big Ravens fan. I hope the Ravens don't play like purple pansies on Sunday. But these are lovely purple pansies. I've also got some more Ravens flowers over my other shoulder. Sporticulture, that's sport eye culture. They're grown here locally, shipped to my studio or your studio or to your wife, your friends, your out-of-town friends. Officially licensed NFL flowers. They smell nice, too. Sporticulture. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube, WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net. AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.